With us, he's the superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools. Nothing's happened to him. He's with us this morning on our AM Minnesota program. We certainly look forward to our visit with the superintendent. A lot of things going on.
Yeah, a lot of good things happening in our schools, and of course winter activities are up and running now, winter concerts, and it's been a great start to the fall season and the winter season, I guess.
We'll continue with the educational theme tomorrow. Pat Fuchs, Cindy Harrison, Emily Nesbold will be in studio talking about AAUW scholarships. Barb Larson, who's the membership and events director at the Faribault Area Chamber, will be with us on Fridays. AM Minnesota show. Monday, it's the Paradise Center for the Arts, and next Wednesday, Faribault's the fire chief, Dusty Dienst, will be in studio to give us some fire safety tips over the holidays. Tragically, a lot of fire fatalities typically, during the holiday season.
Yeah, there is, and we just hope everybody is safe over the Christmas holidays.
Monday, the board approved the budget, right?
They did, yes. They approved the final levy certification. It's a little bit different than the budget. The actual budget for this year was really approved the final budget was approved last May, and excuse me, and the audit was finalized this last board meeting. So we'll be working on next year's budget probably in February, March, and April.
How can you approve a budget before you approve a levy?
It's a good question. We have to guess. We have to be really good guessers as to what the finances are.
Truth in taxation, you have 20,000 people show up and say we will not pay this, and you have to lower that. I mean, that would affect the budget, would it not?
Yep, that's just education finance. You have to kind of guess at what the revenues too. This levy, remember, is for next year, so we use this dollar amount for next year's budget for 16-17. So we approve what the levy amount is first, and then we use that revenue to determine what our final budget is.
Yeah.
So now we'll be able to put that revenue in the 16-17 budget to figure out what the final budget will be.
And you've got the numbers in front of you. Maybe you can share them with us quickly here.
Yep. The overall increase is about a 6.5% increase. Of course, we have 4 different major funds in there. The general fund increased by 12.4%. The main reason for the general fund increase was that new legislative action that occurred regarding the facilities. It's basically deferred maintenance. It's long-term facilities, and for us that's great news because that helps us repair a lot of the things that we didn't repair when we passed that $15 million bond. Originally that bond was scheduled to be about $30 million, and then the board reduced it to 15. So there are a lot of projects that were out there that we didn't address. So this new revenue stream will really help us, and that's an additional $800,000 that we'll see in deferred maintenance revenue for next year. Now that's just used for bricks and mortar. That's not used for classroom.
So the total increase, $655,799.
Yep.
Takes that into account.
It does. There are some offsets like health and safety. The Department of Education, I know you're not going to believe this, but they actually made a mistake about 5 years ago.
No, really?
They did. And so through their corrective action, that actually it works in our favor. We can reduce the levy by $279,000 with that. So there's a lot of determining factors. I think there's about 15 different levies on for the general fund, and then the net effect of that is about $655,000. Well, it is $655,799 of an increase in the general fund, but that's primarily due to the long-term facilities levy, which was passed into law last legislative session.
Some other policies were passed at the last board meeting, a weapons policy, an enrollment of non-resident students, and a hazing prohibition. We'll touch on some of that when AM Minnesota continues. Right now we're going to get your opening market report, a service of your KDHL Agri Boosters of Schools. Todd Sesker is in studio today for our monthly, we hope it's monthly, I know sometimes it hasn't always worked out to be monthly, visit. Hopefully we can continue this in the new year.
Yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate KDHL helping us communicate all the good things that are happening in the school. So thanks, Gordy.
And there is a lot of positive activity going on.
There are, and our curriculum's doing great right now. We've put in place some new technology, a newcomer center that helps relieve some of the class sizes, and just a lot of good things that are happening in the school that it's fun to go into and watch what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I noticed on your website you had a neat picture of the soccer team.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Up at the state tournament.
Yeah, and it's bigger than just soccer for our community.
Right.
And I thought that Brendan Cox did a great job of bringing those three different ethnic groups together to create a soccer team. And you know, you look at some of the kids, and I've got a lot of athletic background that I bring with me, and I think that's been something that I've always carried with me my entire life is advocating for extracurricular activities, including athletics. But you know, some of these kids that you see in the hallway, we've got some really potential great athletes of all different ethnic origins, and getting those kids to play together, and this again is athletics, it can work the same way with academics and community and everything else, but when you get a group of kids together to work towards one goal, it's amazing what they can accomplish. I don't think any of us would have thought that the soccer team would have been as successful as they have been if you looked at the way Brendan started with that group at the beginning of the year, so tremendous effort by them.
Well, it was explained to me that they just have different styles. The Hispanics play a different style of soccer than Americans do, and the Somalians play a different style than those two do. So you had to mesh all three styles.
Yep, exactly right. And you kind of think that in a larger context, bringing that to the school, all the different cultures, they're all different. And if we work together, see what we can accomplish. I mean, that is, like I said, a tremendous success story. And if we can do that in the academic area, that would be terrific.
Yeah, it was a terrific run, and I just thought that picture was so awesome on the school district website. If you want to take a look at it, folks, they're all sitting there in the soccer goal at, I'm assuming it was taken up at St. Cloud State.
Yeah, well, let's see. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yep, I was up there at the stadium, and that background looks familiar. So, yeah, I wanted to watch them up at the St. Cloud. I also went to watch them when they were up at Sago Lakes during that winter storm that we haven't seen since then. Knock on wood. It was snowing. They played soccer in the snow.
Oh yeah, they had to shovel off the line.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, but that was fun.
Little did we know we'd be sitting here a week before Christmas with no snow, Todd.
I know, and we have a foreign exchange student when I was in Cannon Falls, stayed with us for a number of years, Olivia, and she's coming back from South Africa, and she's married now, and her husband's going to come along with, and they're expecting snow, and so I hope we get a little bit of that before Christmas.
Well, they're going to come join your family for Christmas. How cool is that?
It's great. For 2 weeks they'll be with us, and it was a Rotary Exchange student that we had, and we've kept in touch with her over the last 10 years, and we love her to death, and it's been a great experience for us.
It should be. I don't mean to change the subject, but the Department of Social Services here locally is really putting out a request for foster parents. It doubled the necessity for foster parents in the last year, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to touch on that. And they say they like to keep them, you know, local, so they can go to their local school.
You bet. One of the big factors of student success in schools, this is one of the major factors, is mobility. And when kids move from one school to the next, that has a detrimental effect on their education. And if we can keep some consistency and have families help us out, that would be terrific.
So, think about becoming a foster parent. We were talking about the budget before we took our break. Process was smooth.
Yeah, everything was very smooth. We still have about a 15.2% fund balance, which is terrific. Auditors recommend anywhere between, they like to say between 8 and 15, so we're at the top end of that. We think that we did some really good fiscal suggestions when we spent down the fund balance by about $1 million to help offset taxes as well as help implement some programs. So we're sitting very well financially, and we are now getting into the part where we start looking at the 16-17 budget. It just continues. And we'll start looking at that and seeing what the revenue projections are going to be, and then what expenditures we have, and hopefully we'll be able to balance the budget and move on to the next year. It's been really nice over the last 2 years, Gordy, where I've been now a superintendent for 17 years. Probably the 14 of the 15 years has been cuts, and the last couple of years we haven't had to do that. We've been looking at some innovative programs, and it's been really a very pleasant surprise.
I just took a quick look at your budget for the upcoming 2015-16, which is the current school year, right?
Correct.
The revenues, $48,635,132. Expenditures were a couple million over that, and obviously the fund balance went down to help cover that.
Correct. Yep, we used the fund balance to help offset. You know, $1 million of that fund balance was used for the building project that we talked about. We also have, it's a GASB, it's an accounting system where we have to set aside, I call it the Enron legislation, where the school districts have to have a balance where an actuary comes in and tests your liability for things like when somebody retires, they have insurance going on, or they have a severance package or anything like that. And so all schools are required to do this actuary thing. And so in order to do that, to set this account up, we have to set aside certain dollar amounts. So even from that amount, we took about probably $400,000, $500,000, I don't remember the exact numbers, and also set aside some dollars for that. So even though the general fund has gone down, it's still in our savings account, if you will. But it's responsible spending like that we've done that really hasn't had a negative effect on our budget.
But ideally, wouldn't you want your revenues and expenditures to at least balance?
That's what we're shooting for, and this year we want it to be the same. Last year we purposely did it because we wanted to spend down that fund balance on good projects, good investments. But this spring, for the 16-17 year, we want it to be balanced. Yes, that is correct. So we will see how it works out. It's all a process.
So again, the increase, all levies, district-wide, 6.5%. So that means some levies came down.
Yep.
In fact, a lot of levies had to come down
because
the general fund was a 12.4% increase.
Right, right. We knew that. Well, you know, a lot of this is legislated, so we don't have a lot of control over what we do here. So the levies that we had a little control over, like even debt service, we get 5% extra on our debt service levy so that we make sure that we can pay the bills. We had some excess in the debt service, so we're returning that back to taxpayers. So debt service was actually reduced by $124,000. So we're trying to do that fiscal responsibility of making sure that we're not building up this huge savings account and still being responsible for taxpayers.
I'm glad you brought that up about the control issue, because I looked at your little graph chart. 80% of the revenues in the school district come from the state, 5% from the feds. So 85% outside local, even though we're all paying taxes, right?
Yeah.
11% comes from local property taxes.
Right. Yep. That's the local levy. Yeah. So it's pretty small when you take it compared to other entities. We are really dependent on the state and the feds for our funding.
And that's why the states can go, okay, we're giving you 80% of your dollars, we're going to dictate to you what we're doing here, right?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
But the feds only kick in 5%, and yet they want to dictate too. I always find that interesting.
It is, and lately, until this new legislation was passed at the federal level, the feds have had, in my estimation, way too much control over what happens at schools. It should be the local level. Certainly the state is, with this new law that Representative Klein brought forth and did a tremendous job carrying that forward. We're very proud of what he did and getting that law changed so that we do have more state control.
But he could do that because he was leaving office.
Yeah. He had a lot of cooperation up at there, and it was pretty bipartisan, which is great to see too. But we now have the state, which we have a little bit more control over, to kind of dictate what we need to do. We still have the accountability where we have to give tests, but maybe we can change some things at the state level where we can make that accountability a little bit more conducive to what we want as a local government. Our school board does a great job monitoring our school. So I would even go further, and maybe I'm a little bit further than other people. I think that instead of the state controlling the schools, it should be the local government, our communities controlling the schools. But we still have to be accountable, I guess.
Yeah, well, I know one of our former governors would tell you, if you really want that, then you should pick up the bulk share of the cost.
Yep, that's true. And except for the Constitution says that the state is responsible for public education and transportation. Those are the only two things that they are responsible for.
And frankly, it's just my own opinion, you want a uniform education across the state, don't you? You don't want students in Owatonna that receive a different education than students in Faribault or
right. Yep, and we're really working on that too, because even the tax base is different in different communities. For example, the western suburbs, if they wanted to raise $1 million, it doesn't cost taxpayers, houses, very much money at all. If we wanted to raise $1 million, our taxpayers have to pay a really unfair proportional amount of money to do that. So we're on a committee to hopefully equalize that. It's actually gotten a little bit better, but it still has a ways to go. We still disproportionately get less money than what other schools do in the state because of that tax burden.
Now, I don't know if you want to go this far in terms of the political talk. This is, again, my opinion. we don't need a federal Department of Education.
Yeah, and I don't know if I go quite that far, but I do know that we need less. We don't need the oversight that the federal government thinks that they need for the oversight. I think some of the things that they come out at the federal level, where they lose touch of what happens at the local level. I would love to have more superintendents, and I'm on a federal advocacy group, be involved in that whole federal process, and we do the best we can. But I think there's sometimes you lose touch with what's happening in Faribault when you go all the way to Washington, D.C.
But there are some things you think that we do need a federal education department for. For example, don't they implement the school lunch program?
They do. They do the school lunch program. It's a federal program, the free and reduced lunch, so we get some funding from there. We also get our special education, part of our special education aid from the federal government. So if the state were to take on the federal government's aid in special ed, that would be a huge burden for the state. That's a tremendous amount. Right now, for example, our cross-subsidy, which is the amount that I have to take out of my general fund budget to provide for special education in our school districts, is right around 2.5. It's probably closer to $3 million now that I have to take out of my general fund that is unsubsidized by the state or the feds, that I have to take out from the top of our students. So normally, students get maybe $7,000. I'm just rounding that number off per student. I have to take $400 off of that right away to provide for that unfunded mandate that the feds have gotten.
Because they pay in the rears.
They do. And it's challenging for all districts, and we want to give our kids who have special needs the best education possible, just like everybody else. But people have to understand that because of the unfunded mandate from the federal government, we are short about $3 million in Faribault to provide that funding.
I went through this with your other superintendent friends before you got here, Todd. Mm-hmm. I've never understood why the federal government budget calendar year is different
than our fiscal year.
Fiscal year. I mean, it obviously lends itself to some bad cash flow.
Yeah, it is, and that's kind of and to go back to have the schools go on a fiscal calendar, I don't know what that would take, but it would make more sense.
Well, Dr. Berge, who was superintendent here for a number of years, agreed.
Yeah.
Said we should be on the same calendar.
Yeah, and I don't even know where it originated, to tell you quite honestly. I suppose it was normally you go from August until June for the calendar year, and then the budget cycle starts again, but that's irrelevant now.
No, yeah, but it wouldn't be that hard to change, would it?
I don't think so, but I would like to see the first day of school change to whatever we decide the first day of school should change, instead of having the lobbyists tell us that we have to start after Labor Day. But you know how easy that is to change, and even you may have a different opinion than I do, but I think that we should have the flexibility to change that. But it's hard. It's hard when you talk about politics.
Year-round school is coming.
It is, and I think there are so many good things about it. I have teachers that would love to see it. I mean, administrators that would love to see it. So, it's coming. And many schools have already implemented it. Although, when I talk about politics, Albert Lee tried to put that in play. It failed twice. And to do year-round school is not so easy. It might seem like common sense to do, but to get it to that level where you can pass it is very, very difficult.
See, that Wyzetta's going later to school. Austin's talking about starting school later in the morning.
Yep. And we're having those conversations too, and we would like to set up a process where teachers have planning time together. And we're still doing some of the old scheduling where you've got a math teacher that has a planning period 2, and then another math teacher has a planning period 4. Wouldn't it be nice if they all had the same hour where they could plan together? We don't want to take any of the student contact time out, but there are ways that we can be flexible enough to do this. But again, you have unions, and you have PR, and you have all kinds of things, bus transportation, that has to be changed in order for that all to happen. So it's not as easy as just waving, although I love a magic wand sometimes. It's not as easy as waving a magic wand. It has to go through a lot of processes to get to that point.
Wyzetta, if I remember this right, is going from 7:30 currently to 8:20.
They are, and the research for that has been very, especially for high school kids, is that when you sleep in, you get more production from them.
So it seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
It does, but it's when you talk about moving, you're talking about more daycare for parents in the morning. They've got to keep their kids longer. They have to pay more. So there are a lot of different silos that we have to go to before we come up to a resolution. We're not going to make everybody happy, but we need to make sure that we have the majority happy.
Yeah. Got anything else you want to get the word out on while we got a few minutes left here?
No, I just think that we are going in the right direction for our school district. It's been a great start to the school year. We've had tremendous community support. I've been out and about talking to folks, and I'm really appreciative of the support that we've received in this community for our schools, and all schools for that matter. I've got a great relationship with every school that's within our community, and we've got a lot of great options, and I'm just very proud to be the superintendent of our school, and very happy to be on KDHL. I do have to mention though to you, Gordy, I was really, and this is a couple years ago, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was watching the boys basketball game. Derek McNamara was a very good friend of ours, and I had never had a chance to thank you for that poem that you put out there, but it was very moving, and I just want to thank you personally for doing that on behalf of Derek.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
He was a great kid. Yep.
You know, he's one of those kids where I'd walk in the gym and, how you doing, Gordy? You know,
Yep. Yep.
Just a really nice guy.
Yeah, and he was a great basketball player for the Goodhue Wildcats.
Yeah, and a hard worker. You know, he started his own business when he was 17.
He did, yeah. His the bales,
Yeah.
rolling bales or
Yeah.
whatever they're called. Yeah, he did a great job. Worked with his buddy or his uncle Steve Lindstrom over in Besa, over by Red Wing and Cannon Falls, and yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, we miss seeing him when we go over there.
Yep.
That's tough stuff. Really tough stuff. Oh, speaking of that tough stuff, you know, those 4 kids that were in that accident last October.
Mm-hmm.
Last Saturday, I saw Chase Ernst's return to the lineup, and it was so awesome to see everyone in the place, except Mankato fans because they didn't know what was going on. Chase runs into the game, right?
Yep.
Checks into the game. All the students, standing ovation. All the adults from Faribault, standing ovation.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And that's what it's all about. And you just love to hear those stories. And we're so grateful that Chase is able to get on the court. And I saw him play last night and do a great job. And his parents were there, and the fans were there, and it was fun to see that.
Yeah, he played very well on Saturday. In fact, he was one of our Faribault State Farm players of the contest. So I did want to touch on, we only have a couple minutes left here, but you did pass a weapons policy.
Yep, and you know, most of those policies are legislative changes.
Right.
We're just doing the same things that we had. We just want to make sure we're in compliance.
Hazing prohibition?
Yep, we've had that on the books for a long time. Again, it's just mainly referring to different legislative statutes within the hazing. Of course, that's never been permitted.
And we're on track with the construction with the district office.
We are, yep. We are still scheduled to have that finished by May 31st, knock on wood. And the weather's been great this fall. That's one big advantage of not having snow. And so far, so good.
And there's 2 projects going on, right?
Yeah, the Faribault Education Center, which is mainly our adult basic eds, will have some classroom space in there and some office space attached to the high school. And MetCon's working on that project. And then the one up at the middle school, that'll be the district office, and Schwab out of Rochester is working on that project. So, and ISG, our local architect, is the architect that's in charge.
And both of these, I thought I saw a change order on this. Of course, you get change orders on every construction project, you know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, change orders really have been pretty minimal. We don't, in fact, this past month we didn't have any. So we're hoping we're out of the clear with the change orders, because as you know, sometimes that can really make or break a project. But right now we're right on target.
So both of them are scheduled to be done May 31st?
That's correct.
We'll be ready to go next year.
Yes, we will. Yep, and we have to be out of our leases, both of them, by June 30th. So if it's not done by June 30th, then we're basically homeless, but we'll find a place.
And the bottom line here is the district is going to save money in the long run. They're not paying that lease.
That's correct. Yep, and over the 20-year period of time, actually I think it's 18 years, the community district taxpayers will save about $2.1 million. So big savings for the taxpayers.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate you stopping in, Todd. I guess I can't think of anything else happening other than our new AD will be starting after the first of the year, right?
Yeah, we look forward to Danny Duchesne, who's going to be our new activities director, sorry,
Yeah.
and I have to be careful. Ken Hubert will be with us for about a month to help train Danny in, and we're looking forward to that transition. We had a great interview process. We had 15 folks. We had a couple students, teachers, head coaches, and a couple administrators on that team that chose Danny, and we're really looking forward to having him on board.
And you're looking for someone to be involved in the community. What sort of person were you looking for here?
Yep. Community involvement, committed to, of course, all activities, not just athletics, but being able to be out there and be an advocate for the activities that we have in Faribault. We really looked at the PR piece, which was a huge piece for us because we want to make sure that that's out there. And we thought that he really excelled at that with some of the proposals that he had.
Well, when he gets started, maybe we'll have to have him out to Bashers for our Faribault Coaches Show.
You bet, he will, I'm sure, and maybe even bring him here on the radio show with me.
I was going to say, we could have him on with you too sometime.
Yep.
In the new year. Let him get his feet wet first.
Yep, we'll let him fall down a couple times before.
So the contract, he starts January 4th.
That's correct. Yes.
January 4th. Isn't that amazing? How time flies. We're almost, well, what are we, halfway through the school year now?
Yeah, semester is middle of January, so we're going to get started on second semester here pretty soon.
That's unbelievable.
Yep.
Hey, thanks, Todd. You have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too, Gordy. Appreciate it. You have a Merry Christmas as well.
Todd Sesker is the superintendent of the Faribault Public Schools. Again, tomorrow we'll continue in the education vein. AAUW does some scholarships. We're going to tell you all about that. And Barb Larson, who's the membership and events director for the Chamber, is with us on Friday. You're in tune to KDHLAM Faribault.